In Philippians, Paul describes the enemies of the cross of Christ as dogs. Beware of the dogs. Beware of the evil workers. To sustain the emerging agricultural empire, Africans were seized from their homeland and brought to the New World to produce cotton, sugar, tobacco, and coffee. The moral and religious arguments of the day all pointed to how wrong this was. But the love of money won out over the love of God. The dogs then turned to the foxes, the clever ones, to make sure that the textbooks tell a story that is sympathetic to their cause, a story that minimizes the moral atrocities of slavery. The foxes want us to believe that there is something wrong with black people in this country. The truth is, there is something wrong with this country that black people are in. We ain't gonna let nobody turn us around. We put our faith in God's righteousness. Generations of black people endured great suffering and they did not give up. Let us imitate those servants of God who were not afraid to do God's work in a hostile world. Go tell that fox, we are not afraid of dogs. Go tell that fox we are not afraid of the KKK. Go tell that fox we are not afraid of the police. Go tell that fox we are going to keep on walking. Keep on talking. Go tell that fox we ain't going to let nobody turn us around. Sorry. I fell into a time vortex and gave the ending of a sermon I would have given in the 1960s. Or did I? Ain't gonna let nobody turn me around, turn me around, turn me around. Ain't gonna let nobody turn me around. Gonna keep on walking, keep on talking, marching in the freedom land. Thank you. I'm a lay preacher at the Episcopal Church of Holy Nativity. I've always been in front of things from childhood to the present. I'm used to having to do things and work. I grew up in a small rural community in Kentucky. Everybody knew me. Everybody knew my family. My family knew everybody. We went to a small church, a 12-person church, a church that I am still the youngest member of. Sunday school was taught by my parents. Since it was only 12 people, we had a pastor that only preached preached on first and third Sunday. When there was no preacher, we would just do sings. My grandfather was a deacon at that church, and he would always say, "Our grandchildren are going to get up and sing Amazing Grace." And that's what we would do. My brother and I would get up and we would sing Amazing Grace. As I got a little older, and after being saved and all, I was asked to give little dresses. I was 11, small and cruel, black world. Homecoming season, Sunday afternoon church services, lunch on the ground. The reality was, if things had to get done for the church, you just did them. New windows need putting in. Stair railing needs repaired. We're the ones doing it. There's no one else. The preacher was the only one in our church who got paid twice a month, whatever the plate gave him. I went to a small school, country, straight up rural, K through 8. Only had 100 kids in it. And you could hear as disciplinary words at my school,
"Brad, you better sit down and be quiet, or else I'll tell your father we're at the country club playing cards tonight."
I never had a teacher who didn't know my parents. I was never able to hide. Sparksville, Kentucky. Tobacco was the big cash crop. Sparksville lost its post office the year I was born, 1976. The long and short of it was, I grew up where people did things. When it was time to plant, all the farmers would come out to your farm on Monday. They'd help you plant all your tobacco slips. It goes on Tuesday, you're going to their farm. When it was time for harvest, everyone is shucking corn or picking pole beans. You got what you didn't grow at the country store, and you put it down. As we used to say, people ate. And when your tobacco check came in, you paid off all your bills, and you got your new school clothes. My grandfather had a large farm. Corn, strawberries, tomatoes. My parents' table was always full. Always a table where a lot of different people ate. When I was a kid, my grandmother would come out and ring the bell, the dinner bell. So everyone in the field would hear, "Ooh, blackness." It did give me a particular sensibility. There are black people, there are white people. We're all poor people. And that helped cut through a lot of racism and stuff when it comes to everyone being poor. A lot of the freed slaves, including my great-great-grandfather, bought up this land and kept it in the family for generations, 150 acres. That's all dying now, of course. My grandfather's farm is now owned by someone else. By the time I was in school, we were the only black family in Sparksville. My brother and I were the only black students. And I was never made to believe that I shouldn't be there. And my brother and I were both early readers, able to excel. Our teachers gave us a lot of new things to read, to basically keep us busy, because we would create mischief out of boredom by getting our work done too quickly.
"Brad, now come up here and get another book if you already finished that one." Goodness sakes, you don't know how to worry with us.
We didn't have a whole lot of friends because this was still Southern America, where you don't go into white homes. And they weren't going to come into yours either. But I never missed it. It was through church that I had access to black community that continued. College was my first time away from home. I went to a small Baptist college, and I met 9 other black people. It was only 10 of us in my alma mater, Georgetown College. The black students at Georgetown College were very well supported, although there was no black faculty at Georgetown College, but we had a lot of white professors who knew that it mattered to work closely with black students, mentors. Bill Crouch, the president of Georgetown College, would meet with black students and mentors. He took the group of students who worked with him, he took us to Italy. We were called the president's ambassadors. Academic life at Georgetown College was very tough. Professors demanded excellence, and they didn't allow slacking. If you missed class, they were on you.
Don't you ever miss again. Come sit if you need to. This is important work we're doing.
So I had a really neat college life that was intellectually enriching, and a faculty that would not allow me to feel sorry for growing up in rural America. That's where the seeds were sown for my desire to become a professor. President Crouch tried to recruit me.
"Okay, Brad, you want to become a professor? If you agree to come back and be a professor at your alma mater, we'll pay for you to go to grad school."
I turned him down. Wanted to keep my options open.
A
I fell in love with philosophy. It allowed me to ask questions that I had always been told at church I couldn't ask. Faith versus reason. Ideas of free will, which at my home church was just silly talk, you know? I went to the University of Memphis for grad school after spending a year as a Fulbright scholar at the University of Salamanca in Spain. I finished my PhD in 2003. I was 26. I interviewed for a position at LMU and got it. Being in philosophy at LMU is such a gift because there's just so much philosophy being done. So many traditions and types. At my undergrad institution, the philosophy department was 3 people. LMU, which doesn't have a PhD, has 17 philosophers. Did you know that there are just 72 African American philosophers working in American universities? So, every state gets 1.6 something black philosophers. I was very aware of that when I decided to be a college professor, and that I wanted to be a black college professor. I already knew that these universities across America were hungry for black faculty. I had never heard of a discipline called African American Studies or anything like it, so I didn't take courses in it. But at LMU, I ended up being chair of African American Studies. That was the tax I paid. Some people call it the black tax. I'll explain. I was hired in philosophy, but I also became interested in honors and was made director of the University Honors Program. I actually see the honors years as my real contribution to the university. I doubled the size of the program. I made it the most diverse honors program in the entire AJCU. We raised $1 million to fund honor students. And I gave them up. Gave it up. Kind of mid-plan, no less. The dean at the university was basically going to shut down African American studies. It had become difficult to keep new hires in AFAM and to get people to tenure. It wasn't firmly part of the core, and no one was taking AFAM classes. It was just going to collapse in its own weight. So, the dean came to me and said,
Brad, you have worked so much magic with honors. Could you take that magic and do something with an African American studies?
so that is the tax I paid. The invisible tax on faculty of color. So many different aspects of the American universities are asking for faculty of colors to help in so many ways it can lead to burnout. But this is where justice comes in for me. Putting my faith into action. Putting discipline into action. I don't have a grand theory of justice, but I do see myself as a person that when justice is called, I have answered. I'm a Dorothy Day kind of just. My faith is what I do. So when the opportunity came up, something where I could do justice for black students at LMU, for the black intellectual life at LMU, I answered it. And I gave up something that I highly valued, but the magic worked. AFAM has grown. Now, we are strongly in the core, with only 28% of our classes being taken by African American students. We are actually able to bring African American culture to a large number of students. I'm a teacher, and that's doing justice. I'm a person that I want to know my students. I want to know their story. So pedagogically, storytelling is big. Personal examples are big. Sometimes you hear philosophers recommend just extract yourself from it. Approach the topic without interest. I don't know how that works. I need to know where my students are so the ideas can work in their lives. How can I support the ideas they have? Take them through the process of doing philosophy. Reward them, share in their joy when they're victorious, and share in the sorrows when it fails. Some students take me up on the offer and others don't. But the ones who do, well, We're still talking 10 or 15 years later. That's the kind of education I grew up in. The professors I had would share their lives with me. I had dinner at their tables, and they invited me to go along when there was a great lecture or a film in the area. I try to do that here at LMU, but given the geography of LA, it's difficult. So I like to keep present on campus a lot. Often the students will just stop by.
Look, Dr. Stone, you don't know me, but I have a my favorite person to talk to. I want to study abroad, but I've never even been on a plane.
Latanya Reese Miles, my colleague in student affairs, created this mentoring program called the Bunch Scholars for students who have never traveled abroad. So let's talk. Where do you want to go?
Well, I was thinking maybe Germany. They have some great courses in health and human services. That's my thing.
Well, that's not my thing, but I know a lot of black people who have gone abroad and done wonderful things, like Ralph Bunch.
Awesome. But my main word is money and food. And what's it going to be like over there in Germany?
So we talked. We talked about literature written by people who emigrated to Germany. And I tapped around some LMU offices and put some money together for her. Then, of course, her family was freaking out about her going away.
Where will she live? I mean, will it be safe? What about the food? She is so used to my cooking.
So, I hosted a dinner for the whole family at Chalet Edelweiss, a German dinner, so that they would know what their daughter would be eating. I answered their questions, reassured them that it would be perfectly fine. So, a student goes to Germany, and later, there was a plane wreck, a flight from Germany to Barcelona. The very weekend the LMU students were going to Barcelona. My phone rings.
Professor? Okay, have you heard the thing? I'm so worried about her. I didn't call the university because I didn't know if I was just freaking out, overreacting.
So you decided to call me instead. I went on Facebook, looked at the daughter's post, and she conveniently had made a post 2 minutes earlier. Your daughter just posted on Facebook. She's already gone to Barcelona and returned. She had a great time. It was really interesting to me that her mother had called me. I called them mom and dad, On the Black Student Overnight, we always get a lot of questions in the parent sessions.
How are we going to afford LMU? We're just so afraid. LMU looks so good that I'd be embarrassed if I let my child enroll here and we couldn't pay for year 2 or year 3.
I tell them it's a legitimate worry. But I also tell them that what they should do is to make a plan. Have you looked into scholarships? My favorite thing is Kente graduation. Here comes mom, dad, and grandma. Because for me, I'm aware that it's not just the student coming through. It's mom, it's dad, and grandma. Those who are in the audience may be just as brilliant, but universities weren't accepting a lot of black people back then. This is grandma's graduation too. I think it's easy as an African American community to talk about justice and to do justice. We just do things on behalf of those who wanted to, but weren't allowed to. I see my academic life as doing justice to brilliant black people who were told that universities weren't for them. I share my culture with my students and from my pulpit. I try to bring an African American intelligibility to life and remind everyone that you don't have to be black to have that life. That's the black gift. The life where you know how to convert pain into joy. To read the Bible as present tense, a present tense account of your life. To know that rugged individualism isn't for you. African American culture knows that your response to life has to be communal. You go to the people who know how it's done. Whatever it is, and they'll help you get that piece done. The wisdom black people have accumulated must be shared. We've seen it work. Joyful, faithful, communal. That's doing justice. And knowing that when justice calls, you just answer. We're in this life together.
just an answer.
Now we'd like to introduce the hidden heroes who gave us the material for these wonderful stories.
And I have the honor of presenting Professor Brad Stone.
I think we just want to say it is a great day when we can celebrate this many people doing this much good work on behalf of the community and the people of God. So let's just